It was one of those rare afternoons when the sun shone brightly in the sky, but a gentle breeze kept the heat at bay. Sarah had been looking forward to her walk in the park all day. The stress from work had been overwhelming, and she found solace in the fresh air, the rustling leaves, and the occasional chirping of birds. It was the perfect escape for her. Sarah had always been an animal lover. From a young age, she had been drawn to the innocent, unconditional love that animals provided. Whether it was the stray cats in her neighborhood or the wildlife she spotted during her hikes, Sarah was always looking for ways to help any animal in need. She carried treats in small bags with her on her walks, hoping to offer something to any animal she came across. Little did she know, this walk would change her life forever. As Sarah meandered along the winding path, she found herself surrounded by tall trees. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a golden glow on everything it touched. The peacefulness of the park was perfect. She was lost in the serenity of the moment when, suddenly, she heard a faint whimper. At first, she thought it might be a dog barking off in the distance, but the sound was so soft and distressed that Sarah felt compelled to follow it. She took a few steps in the direction of the sound, carefully pushing through the underbrush and the tall grass. The whimper grew louder, and soon Sarah found herself at the edge of a thick thicket of bushes. She crouched down and peered through the foliage. There, tangled in a mess of thorns and brambles, was a tiny trembling puppy. Its fur was matted with dirt, and its eyes were wide with fear. The puppy looked like it had been through hell. Its little body was covered in scratches and cuts, and it was clearly struggling to free itself from the thorny trap. Sarah's heart sank. She couldn't bear to see an innocent animal in such a state. Without hesitation, she dropped to her knees and gently reached for the puppy. The little creature flinched at first, but Sarah spoke softly to it, reassuring the scared animal with gentle words. "It's okay, little one. I'm here to help you," she whispered, her voice soothing. With great care, Sarah began to untangle the puppy from the thorns, working slowly so as not to cause it any more pain. She could feel the little one's heartbeat racing as she freed it from the sharp thorns, but she was determined. After what felt like an eternity, the puppy was finally free. As soon as it was liberated, the puppy collapsed in Sarah's arms, too weak to stand. It was clear that the poor creature had been abandoned for some time. Sarah cradled it close to her chest, wrapping it in her jacket to shield it from the cold breeze. She stood up, looking around, but there was no sign of anyone nearby. The puppy was alone, with no owner to care for it. "Come on, little one, let's get you to safety," Sarah said softly, looking down at the fragile creature in her arms. Her mind raced, but one thought remained constant. This puppy needed her. Sarah carefully walked back along the path, cradling the puppy in her arms as she made her way toward the nearest exit. The little animal shivered, but Sarah's warmth seemed to comfort it. As she walked, she looked down at the puppy's face. Its eyes were wide with uncertainty, but there was also a glimmer of trust. She couldn't understand why anyone would abandon such a sweet creature, but Sarah knew that she couldn't let this little one suffer any longer. When she finally reached her car, she placed the puppy gently in the passenger seat. The journey home felt long, but Sarah kept glancing over at the puppy, reassuring it with her presence. It was clear that it was exhausted, and Sarah could tell that it hadn't had a proper meal in days. Upon reaching home, Sarah quickly settled the puppy onto a blanket she had laid out on the couch. She went to the kitchen and prepared a small bowl of water and food, hoping the little one would eat. The puppy hesitated at first, sniffing the food before slowly taking a few tentative bites. Sarah watched with relief as the tiny creature ate, its body finally receiving the nourishment it so desperately needed. She gave the puppy a warm bath, carefully washing away the dirt and grime that had accumulated on its fur. As the water ran over the puppy's body, Sarah noticed the small cuts and scrapes that dotted its skin. She cleaned them carefully, applying a bit of antiseptic to each one. The puppy whimpered occasionally, but Sarah was gentle and kind, offering words of comfort. The little one seemed to understand that she was there to help, and as the bath came to an end, it seemed to relax in her arms. That night, Sarah set up a small bed for the puppy in her living room, right next to the couch where she would be sleeping. As she sat down, the puppy crawled over and curled up beside her, resting its head on her lap. Sarah stroked its fur gently, a sense of peace washing over her. She had no idea what the future would hold for her and this little puppy, but she knew that she had just started something important. She had given this little one a second chance at life, and in return, the puppy had given her the companionship she had longed for. Over the next few weeks, Sarah took the puppy to the vet for a thorough checkup. The vet confirmed that the puppy was healthy, but it had a long way to go in terms of physical and emotional recovery. It was evident that the puppy had been through trauma, and Sarah knew that it would take time for the little one to trust fully again. But with every passing day, the bond between Sarah and the puppy grew stronger. Sarah named the puppy Charlie, and as he began to heal, his playful side started to emerge. Charlie was curious and energetic, eager to explore his new home and surroundings. He followed Sarah everywhere, and his wagging tail became a constant source of joy for her. He had a particular fondness for Sarah's morning walks in the park, where he would run around with excitement, his tail wagging furiously. Charlie was no longer the frightened puppy Sarah had found that day. He had blossomed into a loving and playful companion, and Sarah's life had changed in ways she never expected. She realized that this rescue had not just saved Charlie, it had also given her a sense of purpose and fulfillment. For the first time in years, Sarah felt truly happy, surrounded by love and companionship. As the months went by, Charlie and Sarah became inseparable. They went on daily adventures, whether it was hiking in the nearby woods, running at the beach, or simply cuddling on the couch. Charlie had become a part of Sarah's family, and in return, Sarah had become the protector, the caregiver, and the best friend that Charlie had always needed. One evening, as Sarah sat on the porch watching the sunset, Charlie curled up beside her, resting his head on her lap. She stroked his soft fur and thought about everything that had led them to this point. She had rescued him, but in many ways, he had rescued her too. Charlie had filled a space in her heart she didn't even realize was there, and now their lives were intertwined in the most beautiful way. In that moment, Sarah understood that the bond between humans and animals was more than just companionship. It was a connection that transcended words, a love that was unconditional and pure. Charlie had come into her life when she needed him most, and together they had found a happiness that neither of them could have imagined alone.